Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining this another session. This is one of our presentation sessions where we try to bring in other photographers from the community to share what they are doing and to give us a sense of what other photographers locally are doing. For those joining for the first time, I'm Dwayne Smith. I'm the current president of the Jamaica Photography Society. I'm seeing one person standing out as someone I haven't seen before. I hope they don't mind if I call on them to introduce themselves. Doreen Gordon.
Hi.
Hi, Doreen.
I've come to a few Jamaica Photography Society meetings, but not that many for people to remember. But I'm interested in photography, and I know Andrew, so Andrew invited me to listen to his presentation this evening.
Thanks for coming. All right, so our presenter for this evening, sorry, let me check this here, is Andrew Paul Smith. Andrew is a PhD candidate in career and technical education at the University of Technology, Jamaica. His research interests include using photography as a tool for heritage education and utilizing cultural tourism as a catalyst for sustainable development in rural Jamaica. He is a member of the ICOMOS International Cultural Tourism Committee. As a document of Jamaica's natural and cultural heritage and a former news journalist and photography editor, he is a lecturer of journalism and photography in the Bachelor of Arts in Communication Arts and Technology program at UTech Jamaica. Andrew possesses a Master of Arts in Photography from the University of Bolton and a Bachelor of Science in Geography from the University of the West Indies. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept Andrew with his presentation entitled Sights to See, Photography and Applied Research.
All right, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Dwayne, thanks very much for the intro, and thank you for actually inviting me,
You're welcome.
first of all. Dwayne gave me a whole list of stuff that he wants me to cover, which I suppose by the end of the evening I will, but I'm not into formalities. I'll be talking, and I hope that you will also be talking as well. I'm looking at the list of participants, and I know quite a few of you. In fact, Dwayne asked me to start with talking about my journey in photography. And my journey in photography started at UWI in the UWI Camera Club. And I'm glad to see that Kirk Martin. Kirk, that you?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, Kirk. Yeah, that Kirk Martin is there. Kirk, one of my bona fide brethren from UWI Camera Club days. I'm not going to say when we were in UWI Camera Club, but I will say that when we were in the Camera Club, we processed black and white film. We processed and printed black and white. So, you know, it was all pre-digital. And that is where my photography journey started. I came into UWI with a desire to do photography. At UA, I also did geography, as Dwayne mentioned. And so it just became an obvious mix to combine photography and geography. And I'm glad to see the members of the society here because, and also I want to point out Bruce Taylor, because photography clubs are very important. Very important. We don't have a lot of formal places for training in photography, and many of our best photographers have been involved in photography clubs, photography societies. As I said, I started at UA Camera Club, and after UA, I joined what was the Color Photography Club of Jamaica, which Bruce was also a member of, and also Kirk as well. And we all know the expression iron sharpens iron. And those were the societies that helped to sharpen the skills of photography. In terms of what I do in terms of photography, I'm going to share a screen, which is just my website. And so obviously I won't go through everything that's on my website. If you want to get familiar with what's on the website, you can do that. I'm really just doing it so that you guys have something to look at. So the website, as you can see, AP Smith Images. And what Dwayne has asked me to speak about is applying photography into research. But I can't talk about what I do now without talking about what I've done in the past. So, as I said, it all started at UWI with photography and geography. And like many of us, when we leave university, we wish that we could probably make a living with photography, but we're not too sure if we can. So what we do is we find safe jobs, and I did that as well. Even though I did a degree in geography, I couldn't find work in the field. So I ended up in the financial sector for 5 years. And one thing I will say, no experience is wasted. Even though my time in finance, let's just say when I left finance after 5 years, I left with an also. That's all I'll say. But I left finance to see, let me see if this photography thing if I can do anything with it. And so I took a risk, left the financial sector to see what I could do with photography. So I freelanced for a couple of years. And then based on the work I did, and also based to the photography club as well, which is why I'm emphasizing the clubs. Through my participation in the photography club, I became recognized by the Gleaner. And so the Gleaner recruited me. They recruited me initially as a photographer, and then they discovered I could write. And so they hired me as a photographer and a reporter. And so what I'd also want to emphasize nowadays, being multi-skilled, be as multi-skilled as you can. By the way, I'm speaking. I don't like speaking too much. So as I'm speaking, if anyone wants to say anything, if anyone has any comments, any questions, please, I'm asking you to just raise your hands because what I want I want this to be a discussion. I don't want this to be me talking all the time. So if anyone has a question, or if anyone has anything they want to say, please just raise your hands so that I'm not the only one talking, please. So as I said, I was at the Gleaner for 5 years, originally hired as a photographer and a reporter. After the first year, I became a photo editor, and I was photo editor for 4 years. And then I
Bruce, sorry,
left to do my master's. Bruce, your hand is up.
Yes, Andrew, I noted some images there that look done overseas. Can you tell us anything about those and your experience shooting overseas?
So. The overseas ones are the more recent ones. Okay, so as I say, I left finance and there was like a 5 year gap between finance and the Gleaner. During that time, as I said, I was freelancing, and then I got the opportunity to do a photography exchange between Jamaica and East Midlands in the UK. I'm going to date myself. That was 2002. And that was the first opportunity to go overseas to do any kind of photography. So that was the summer of 2002. And coming out of that as well, and this kind of led to my time at the Gleaner, because this was before I joined the Gleaner. So I was in the UK summer 2002. Before I left for the UK, I was watching a BBC News report about food shortages in Malawi, Southern Africa. So I filed that in the back of my mind. So while I was in UK, I came across Oxfam, which was the charity doing work in Malawi. So I spoke to them and I asked if I found myself in Malawi, would they be able to take me around? They said yes. So the exchange program, at the end of it, you were given a stipend to produce work. I used that stipend to buy a ticket to go to Malawi. And I spent a week. This shot here, this is actually from Malawi. This was the time I was still shooting black and white film. And so when I came back from Jamaica, as I say, I had links with the Gleaner at the time. I wrote a piece about, so I wrote and provided photos. And based on that, the Gleaner got interested in hiring me. And that's so actually taking that risk to go to Malawi was a major factor in me being hired by the Gleaner. So if it's one thing I'd encourage you guys to do is take risks. Take calculated risks. Don't do anything stupid. But take calculated risks. So that was my first overseas photography expedition. While I was at the Gleaner, I did other overseas stuff. As I said, I write and I shoot. So when I was at the Gleaner, for example, when Hurricane Ivan hit in 2004, and they had space in a helicopter, no, they had space in a private plane to go to Cayman to cover the damage of Hurricane Ivan. They had one space for one person. So they chose the one person who could shoot and write. And that was me. So being multi-skilled makes you more marketable. So, which is why I'm saying be as multi-skilled as you can. Other things I did at the Gleaner, I went to Haiti in 2004 as well, when President Aristide at the time was overthrown. I was in Haiti. I was in Cayman, as I said, for Ivan. The good side, apart from I was also, again, being multi-skilled, when they wanted to somebody to test drive a BMW in the Austrian Alps, they also sent me. So it wasn't just disasters and war. There were also some other perks as well. So that was Gleaner. As I say, left Gleaner, got my master's in photography, international photography, with the University of Bolton. And even though it was at the University of Bolton, which is a UK university, they had a center in China. And so I actually opted to be attached to the center in China. And so twice in that year, I ended up going to China. So that was also additional part of my traveling. After I left the Gleaner, I also freelanced for Reuters. So a few of the photos that you see here, the one that just went with Bolt and Blake, the trials from a couple of years ago, that was shooting for Reuters. So a lot of, and some other international agencies, Dematics Corbis. So I covered a lot of sports for these international agencies as well. Christian, this one is from China, by the way.
Okay. How did you, well, did you reach out to the international news agencies, or did they reach out to you? And what was that like? What was that like?
Okay, so it happened when I came out of Gleaner. So for Reuters, I reached out to Reuters because at the time they didn't have any local photographers, and coming out of the Gleaner, I had an idea of the kind of news that these international agencies would want. So I reached out to them and began freelancing for them. Also for Dematics Corbis, they were an agency, a news agency, picture agency at the time as well. Yeah, I reached out to them. I reached out. Yeah, I reached out to them.
Okay. So there is the opportunity for those who want to freelance. Once you have the body of work, you can reach out to these agencies.
I would say yes, but I will say that this was before the age of the proliferation of smartphones and social media. So the quantity of images available for usage by the agencies there weren't as many. That being said, there will still be a demand for quality photos. And so,
Yeah.
like these sports images, you can't do that with a smartphone. You need the equipment, you need the knowledge to cover the sports. And so, yes, there has been competition from, as he said, the technology, the phones, and the social media. But when it comes to quality and certain events, there's something that can't be replaced. But that being said, I will not lie, it has become more competitive thanks to the technology. And that's something which I always tell my students as well, which is why I encourage my students always to be multi-skilled.
Okay.
If you want to have a career in the media industry, you need to be multi-skilled. Yep. Any other questions?
Hi, yes, actually, I wanted to know how come you don't put any copyright on your images on your website? And then the second question is, what did you use to build your website?
Okay,
That was Amanda.
there are two arguments for putting copyright. One is to safeguard your intellectual property.
Yeah.
One of the things I do is reduce the quality, and that's really why I do it. Plus, I don't like the distraction of the watermark. Some images, depending on where I post, I do use watermarks, but other places I basically don't. In terms of the website, this is a WordPress website.
Yeah, okay.
Which basically I've created.
What was the second point you said where you don't use the copyright to something with the quality?
So I don't want the distraction, and also, yeah, that's a primary reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a personal opinion. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I do have a fear of people, stealing my images. Safeguarding is my personal reason, but at the same time, you could argue that what's the word? Copying is flattery, or some phrase like that. I don't know how everybody feels about that one. I'm interested to know everybody else's opinion on putting signatures on. And then if we can have a discussion on that.
Also see a question from Kirk. Mr. Martin.
Yeah, hey, okay, so this is not as much, well, I guess it's something of a question as well, but also a comment, and it relates specifically to what you're saying about the proliferation of smartphones and, well, just the technology employed in digital photography improving so significantly. But what I'm paying attention to here in all of your images is really, it's your approach to your photography. That's
okay.
What you see a lot of, if you're really into social media or anything like that, are, for want of a better term, the perspective tends to be about the individual taking the image, and not so much of the image in and of itself, I mean, okay, this image you have here, these two young ladies sitting down, you don't tend to get that sort of thing on social media. You don't get to. So this photojournalistic approach to story and storytelling still.
Kirk, lost you.
You muted Kirk.
Kirk, lost the audio.
Kirk, you need to unmute.
That's about the technology and not about the perspective and the training. And as you say, well, and the approach to the work that you're doing. It's unfortunate that we still get that lovely question, oh, what did you shoot it with? Who cares? Right? Who cares? As far as I'm concerned, if I look at your image and I know this is the kind of, and this is a body of work that you're presenting, and the body of work is about photojournalism, then that's what I'm looking into. The gear and the other stuff is neither here nor there. Now, having said all of that, what can you speak to the demand for that sort of approach to photography?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in a way which refers to how I teach photography as well. So as Dre mentioned, I currently teach full-time at UTech. I've also taught part-time at NCU, UE, Edna Manley, SANA, MTI, and I also do workshops as well. And as Kirk pointed out, it's not the device, it's a photographer. So what I teach is telling a story, whether it's a single image or whether it's a collection of images, photo essay. What is the story that you are telling? And Verol is one of my students from Edna Manley. He can probably also talk about how I teach as well. But it's storytelling. And in fact, at UTech, one of the modules that I teach, it's an elective for the entire university. If you come with a smartphone, you will be taught how to take photographs and how to tell stories with your photographs. So to answer your question, Kirk, I think a lot of it is also how people learn photography. Because you and I growing up through UE Camera Club, we had mentors, we had peers. The same thing in CPC, as Bruce will also confirm. We had this approach. We had these mentors who had styles, and yes, we're not going to imitate styles necessarily, but the approach, what we were definitely taught was how to approach our photography. Social media has changed that, and a lot has to do with the marketing, because a lot of the marketing claims that if you have a smartphone, you can be a photojournalist. We all know that's a lie. But that's the marketing and that's the hype. So a lot of it has to do with how you learn photography. And even my students, I know learning photography, of course, this was back in the day of magazines. Every week, every month, I would get photography magazines and I would immerse myself in these photography magazines. I would buy photography books. I would learn as much as I could from contemporary and past photographers through reading, through books. When I ask my students how often they do that, they don't. So in a way, it's teaching. We have to find ways of teaching people photography in such a way that they learn their own individual style so that they can tell the stories that they want to tell in their own unique way. I don't know if that answered the question, Kirk.
Okay, so at the risk of sounding like I'm taking over your presentation, forgive me. Because this is, I'm kind of struggling with this. As Andrew has alluded to, we've been doing photography for a little while. And as a proud father of a young lady, I'm trying to impart to her, because I have this need to mentor somebody, right? Some of these skills. But one of the things that I find is that persons learn more, I think. The way that they look at the medium is a little bit different. Video tends to be a little bit more, for want of a better term, eye-catching. Photography requires thought, insight, intuition. It requires you to, things aren't just put on a platter in front of you. You gotta look. You gotta open your mind. And then you have to extract what you will extract. I imagine for most of the photographers who are in here, we understand that there is what we see, and then there is what the viewer walks away with, right? In photojournalism, more often than not, you want those two things to be very close, right? And your interpretation of the scene is to bring the viewer to that story, or to a story you're telling. But I tend to find now vlogging, where somebody's actually literally telling you what you are to think, telling you how you're supposed to look at something, telling you how that seems to be the order of the day, right? And I just kind of wonder, how are you navigating that particular? Well, first of all, if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, and how are you navigating that particular challenge? I mean, your presentation here is primarily stills, right? I am a stills guy, you know this. But if I were to tell you that the next camera I am thinking of getting has to be able to do some sort of video, I would be lying, because it has to. Because somehow I think that appreciation, we're losing that appreciation. Do we hold fast, or do we bend like the coconut tree in the wind? And end of rant.
Okay. So in terms of, again, I'll go back to teaching, because I'm teaching, especially at UTech. At UTech, I teach in the Communication Arts and Technology program, which is basically multimedia, transmedia skills. So yes, I teach photography, and the photography I teach them is basically geared towards journalism, but they are also taught web design, graphic design, they're taught video, they're taught audio, all of this, because it's all about storytelling. So it's all about using the different media to tell stories. And at the end of the day, you can either say that you're specializing in journalism or public relations or marketing. But at the end of the day, you should also have the production skills, as I said, in audio, photography, to be able to do all of this. I'm saying this because each student is unique. Yes, some will take to video more than audio more to photography. And so what we teach is to make sure that they are competent in everything. Basically, we plant a seed so that they can choose what they like to do and focus on that. What I found interesting, I've been teaching there for 12 years, and people who never really weren't really interested in photography as students, I see them on their social media promoting themselves as photographers right now. So for me, it's planting a seed, exposing them to all the different types of media, because they're exposed to it anyway. They're exposed to the vlogging, they're exposed to the podcasting, they're exposed to it no matter what. So teach them and then let them decide, plant the seed, as I say, and then let them decide which way they want to go. Okay? Doreen?
I just wanted to comment on something that was being said, because I don't think photography is a neutral thing. I mean, you may think that you're taking a picture as close as possible to reality, but you are taking a particular perspective. You are thinking, reflecting on the view that you want to capture, and you do come away with a personal framing of what you see in front of you. So I think you can tell a story with pictures, with still photography, and that your opinions, perspectives, viewpoints influence the picture. So just in response to the discussion that was going on.
Yeah, definitely. They say the camera doesn't lie. That is a lie, because you want to tell a story. You want to say something. All right? And I'm a photojournalist, but we have different people. We have Donette, we have Amanda, we have the fine art photographers, we have landscape outdoor photographers, different types of photographers who specialize in different areas. And so they have different motives for taking the photographs that they take. They have different stories that they want to tell, or they might not be telling a story at all. They just might be presenting a piece of art for discussion. So the reasons for doing photography vary according to the amount of people who do photography. I am a photojournalist, documentary photographer, and my purpose is to tell stories, and I'll go into more detail as to how I've combined my desire for telling stories and my geography degree with the app that I have, which I have created, because it's all about combining images, technology, and telling the stories. Okay. 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 So I think I basically covered the introductory part. Have I doing? I think I covered the intro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, as I said, what I do is right now I'm doing research, but the research that I do is based on my interests in geography. So as Kirk will tell you, as photographers, as much as we could, and I'm sure you guys do it as well, we like to explore. We like to hit the road, and you like to get out there and photograph, document, find places to shoot. So whether it's natural environment, natural heritage, or whether it's little known places, that's the kind of photography that we basically grew up doing. So as I say, this is my website, not going to go through it, but as you can see, the website, I have photographer, educator, researcher. Been talking about the photography, been touching on the educator. Now I'm going to talk about the research because this is what Dwayne had asked me to present on. So what I've always wanted to do based off my interest in geography and photography, and a lot of it came back from the feedback of my photographs. Whenever, and I've been shooting for, let's just say I've been shooting from the 90s, okay? So I've been shooting for some time, but as long as I've been shooting, whenever I showed people my images, people are always like, where is this? They don't believe it's Jamaica. Jamaica don't look so. And so it confirmed to me there's a lot of ignorance about Jamaica, even among Jamaicans. And so even before I joined the Gleaner, but at the Gleaner I was able to promote it a bit more, to use photography to educate and inform Jamaicans about Jamaica, whether in terms of the natural heritage, cultural heritage, etc. So that's something which I've always been interested in doing with my photography. And now, when I have time to shoot, I do documentary photography focusing on natural and cultural heritage. So in terms of my research now, I knew I wanted to incorporate photography into my research. And I also wanted to do heritage education. And so I've come up with thing about research, and I think Doreen can confirm this, Dr. Doreen, that there can be a lot of spin-offs if you're not careful. If you don't focus on something, you can end up going down one rabbit hole and then another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole. And in a way, that's how the app came up. The Sights to See app, which is what Dwayne wanted me to focus on. What I'm gonna do is, I think Dwayne had sent the link to everyone, but I'm just gonna do that here as well. What I'm gonna do is, it's best if you go on this, so the link I sent is this page. And if you notice, there are different ways you can view the app. So Sights to See, what I created Sights to See really as a tool to help me in my research. That's really how it came across. Because I wanted to have a convenient way of being able to access information about the sites that I was researching instead of going through all of the material, all of the books, all the websites, all the links, etc. So that's really how Sites to See came up. One thing I want to point out is that depending on, so there are currently three editions. And if you look, it's best if you view the app, depending on how you orient your device, whether you hold it horizontal or vertical, you will notice that the app appears differently. So it was originally designed as a research tool, and based on encouragement, I decided to go deeper into making it a heritage education tool with the support of UTech, various people at UTech. And so the first app was the Sites to See app, which I got assistance with UTech to produce. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change devices, and I'm going to share the app on the screen. So I'm going to just give me a second while I Okay, so this is the mobile version being viewed on the phone, being viewed vertically. Because if I turn it horizontally, it will appear different, as you can see. But so just to basically go through the app, as I go through it, if any questions, let me know. As I say, I created it. So there are three versions. Buff Bay Valley was the first one. Buff Bay Valley is basically my backyard. In terms of research, there were two other locations. The old parish of St. John, which is in St. Catherine, and also Eastern St. Thomas as well. So if you look at the screen, well, this is the home screen. And there are basically three menus. So the way I created this app, it's composed of two main things. Images, well, three main things. Images, historical information, but before I can put together the images and historical information, I need the coordinates. And so I take the coordinates of the various sites using an app on my phone where I get the GPS coordinates. And the software that I use is ArcGIS software, which allows you to create these story type maps. So there are three types of screens. So this is Buff Bay Valley in West Portland. And I'm doing this on my phone, but obviously if you go to the screen, to the link which I sent in the app, you can utilize this yourself and spend your own time. Notice I'm zooming in. So this is still the map version. And if you notice number 1, which comes up at the screen at the bottom, and if you click at it, you get information. So you go to the media. So I'm sure that you've all driven through Buff Bay, probably on our way to Port Antonio. There's not many people stop in Buff Bay, unfortunately. There's a lot going on in Buff Bay, but anyway. So you're probably familiar with this church, which is actually the oldest building in Buff Bay. This structure is over 100 years old, but originally the building dating back from 1802. So the information which I put, obviously research. So I researched different sites. Some of these sites are declared by Heritage Trust, but not all sites, but not everything I have on the app are Heritage Trust sites. Because in speaking with Heritage Trust, they acknowledge that there are a lot of sites which they just don't have the resources to declare. And actually, what I've been asked, and I'm sharing this with you guys because I know you guys get out, if you are aware of any sites which have the potential to be declared as national monuments, Heritage Trust would love to know. Okay? So don't think that all of our knowledge about our heritage sites is complete. Jamaica National Heritage Trust themselves confirm that there are a lot of sites out there that they don't know about, that they'd love to know about, and so they're asking the public, let them know what we come across. Okay? So some of these sites are declared by Heritage Trust, some are not. So you can scroll across. So if you notice, I'm still in the media screen. So again, images and information. And if you look back at the map, you'll see that I'm still in the town of Buff Bay. So the Methodist Church. And one of the things which Heritage Trust will probably admit is that, and if you've ever looked at on the Heritage Trust website, you'll realize that a lot of the sites are colonial, British colonial, related to slavery and colonialism. There's a lot more to our heritage than that. And so if we can find these sites, then they would like that. So here we have, again, I'm just switching. You might know that Jamaica has one of the oldest train networks. And here in Buff Bay, we have not just a train station and the remnants of the train station, you also have train tunnels. And again, mid-19th century, but now homeless people live there. So the information that I provide in the app is historical as well as current information. I included the high school because I was actually doing a project which involved the high school, the students. So I figured including the high school, the students might like that. Kirk, not just stills. The app also allows for video as well. So short clips I've included as well. And it's something which I will probably try to involve more video clips apart from the stills as well. In terms of content for the app, so the images, the video stuff, that's all original, that's all stuff which I shoot. But in order to post it on the app, you need to put in a URL. So what I do is that I upload the media, whether video or stills, to my website and then use a URL and add the URL to the program that I'm using. And that's basically how I utilize the app. Uh, so in terms of the other screen, so from left to right, as you mentioned, there are three screens. The list screen. So the list screen lists, obviously, lists the different sites that are there. I've combined, and if you look at the map, as I say, I've called this app is for the Buff Bay Valley. And so if you look at the screen, so the first couple of sites are in the town of Buff Bay. But we go up, we go into Charlestown, which is further up the valley. Number 15, which is Wilderness Retreat. So this also provides information in terms of if people wanted to have accommodation or if tourists wanted somewhere to stay. So the Wilderness Retreat is such a place. Question. Let me just go through this before I answer your question, okay? So as you go through the app, you'll notice, and if you click on each one, you'll see, if I click on number 11, you'll see it's a church. Click on number 12, it's a waterfall. If you click on number 10, it's a coffee run. Okay, so this is a mix. So currently this is a mix of heritage sites and eco-adventure tourism type sites as well. All right. So as you come up the valley, coming up the valley, so it starts in Buff Bay, and then it will end finally in, not at the waterfall, but at Oliver. Yeah. Okay, question.
Yeah, I kind of thought about how you embedded the images in the app. So you said that it's uploaded to your website and then the link is embedded in the app. I was just looking at in the event your site goes down, maybe the server goes down, if sharing from a cloud storage would offer some more resilience.
Possibly. I'll admit I'm kind of old school. I don't trust cloud storage. I just think I gotta get hacked. I don't know. You keep hearing about all these celebrities' accounts getting hacked. We already spoke about, Amanda mentioned protection, safety of images. I prefer to have control of the images. So, which is why I keep it there. In terms of if anything happens to the servers, what is added to the program is the URL address. So the URL address of the images or video, that is what the app reads. So unless something happens to mess up the URL of the image of the media files, then it will still be there. I've never had the problem
if the
that
server goes
good.
down, then the URL wouldn't work. The URL would be broken.
Yeah, well, I give thanks that my host has behaved itself for the last couple of years. But it is something to take into account. I never. Yeah, I might consider cloud storage.
Because the other thing that you also have to look at is where your viewers are coming from.
Yeah.
say you have somebody in China that's viewing the app,
Mhm.
it will be going to fetch the file from your website that's probably hosted in the US.
Mhm.
With cloud storage, they have some content distribution networks, so files would then be served up to viewers from the nearest point to them. So
Okay.
that is also something to consider.
All right, cool, good, thanks. Definitely
Uh,
I'll take that into account.
yeah. ArcGIS, I've heard of it before.
Mhm.
How do you find using it? Is it a paid or free service?
So I came across it while I was doing the PhD. Actually, I did one of the courses for the PhD was uh geographical information systems, and so that's how I came across it. And through doing the master's, sorry, through doing the PhD, I basically have an account. I do want to. I am working on having my own independent account because there are some other. Right now, I see this as a basic version. There are other things I want to do with it in terms of, because actually, when in developing the app, at the development stage, part of research, did surveys and stuff. We did a pilot and we did surveys to find out what users of an app like this would be interested in terms of what information they might be able they'd want or what kind of features they'd want. And so based on that feedback, I haven't developed the app or I haven't added the feedback on the feedback that I received on this version yet. So the aim is to update is to refine the app a bit more. So this is a basic version, but as I said, I created it originally as a research tool to assist me in my research. But based on the feedback and the interest, I recognize there is scope for further development and for different markets. And so that's what the next version will take into account.
Okay, understood.
Yep. Questions? So this is one app. I'm gonna share another version. So let me while I do that, any questions, any comments, thoughts from anyone?
Good evening, sir.
Hi, Shantis.
Hi. I just have a quick question. Is it specific to Buff Bay or can it go broader to St. Mary
Okay,
to
great.
different packages?
All right. So glad you asked that. So I have three versions. The first one was the Buff Bay Valley one. I have another version. I have two other versions. I'm gonna share one now. But basically, it can be utilized for any location. So the plan is actually to basically, because if you look at the website, you'll see that it says what I've called it is Sites to See Jamaica, because there are many communities which have which Jamaica is small, but Jamaica is very, very okay. Wrong version. There is so much variety in terms of its heritage. And so what I've done is that I basically made it community based. I've made it community based so that any community which has any type of heritage, an app can be customized for it. Okay. So yes, definitely an app could be done for anywhere. St. Mary, any kind of parish that has these heritage sites. Yep. Just sorting out the technology as we speak, making sure that I can get the other app.
So was it a design method in separating into communities as opposed to having the large Jamaica app?
It's more convenient. Yeah, it's more convenient and manageable, and I believe user friendly to have it community based, because an entire hold on for a second. Okay, good. So this is another app. So because of the amount of detail that you can have in the community, because as you can imagine, the app I showed before, it's from Buff Bay to Hollywell is, well, it's an hour drive, so the distance isn't that far, but the amount of sites that are there in that very small area. To do that at a national scale, it would be basically unmanageable. So an example of that is also this one. So St. John. So again, looking at the history, we all know about St. John's Road, but how many of us know that St. John's Road is named from the parish of St. John, which existed from 1677 to 1867? Okay, so there's actually a parish of St. John, which is made up of what is now Granada Vale and Kitson Town. So again, if we look at and what I like about this location is the variety of sites in a very, very small geographical area. So if you look at the map, here, you see where Spanish Town is. You have an idea of where the sites are in relation to Spanish Town. But it's a part of St. Catherine, the northwest part of St. Catherine. So it's a small part, but within this very small part of St. Catherine, the variety of heritage sites from Taino cave paintings all the way to free villages, great houses. The variety of sites in such a very small place is I find very amazing. So Mountain River Cave, fortunately, is declared a Heritage Trust site. And again, research providing the information. So these are Taino pictographs, petroglyphs, rock carvings, which are easily 500 to 1300 years old, pre-Columbian. Okay. And if you look at the map, so if you can find the details on the map here. So that's site number 1, which, apart from the first site in this app, all the sites are on the main road. Apart from the first site, which is a cave, which is basically an hour's hike from the main road. Okay. But it's a cave, so you'd expect that. So that's what we have, Taino. So that's the first one. The second one, we've all heard of the Wandebolus Mountains, right? Yes? Why were they called the Wandebolus Mountains? Named after a slave who was a Maroon with the Spanish, and then he changed allegiance from the Spanish to the British and helped defeat the Spanish. So the British named the mountain range after the Maroon slave who helped get rid of the Spanish. So again, this is all, if you look at the map, this is all in a very small area. So we have Tainos, we have the Spanish Maroons, the conflict between the Spanish and the British. And then the British were there for X amount of years. And what I love about this church, apart from the age, so if you look at the list, you'll see a thumbnail of the actual photograph of the actual church. But what I found most interesting about the church are the graves, 17th century graves, in the at the floor. Because remember, this was a part of Jamaica where the British arrived first. And there's a practice in these churches to bury their dead in the churches. And it was a practice that only finished when the yellow fever outbreak came up. So up until yellow fever, and what I find both are very interesting about these graves, the detail of the heraldry. The really detailed stuff here. And this is right, just you drive past Dovecot and keep driving. And keep driving and keep driving. And you'll pass the church. And it's very easy to pass the church and ignore it. Again, small location, but here we have connections to the Maroons. Because Kojo, he came from one of the sugar estates in the area. And he used this cave, this is another cave, and he used this cave to travel. And the owner, who owns it now, says he has walked underground 20 kilometers from the cave to buy. So we have a couple of great houses, which again go back to 17th century. We have the remains of the great houses here, the aqueduct, the water wheel. We have a cotton tree, and you all know about cotton trees in terms of folklore. Over 400 years old. Kitson town itself is a free village, and there are remnants of the free village in the town. Again, Kirk, I've included video to provide additional information. Also folklore, apart from the cotton tree, there's a pond, which is actually just a cow pond, but especially when the children, and it has got a very eerie vibe. If you look at it in your own time, and if you click on the video, you get a really, really eerie vibe. And I'll admit, Kirk, you get the vibe more from the video, which I could not get that kind of vibe from a photo. So yeah, video definitely has its place. Wattle and daub, a technique which is dates to the 16th century. There's a wattle and daub house there. And I just want to remind you that all of these sites are in a very, very small geographical location. And most, if not all of them, are on the main road, past Dovecot. Okay, so if you look here, you'll notice so many of the sites which are on the main road. So apart from the cave here, the second cave, and the first cave, if you look, all of the other sites are on the main, very easily accessible. But the fact is, it might be so easy to drive past it and not know that of the history that you're passing by. This church here, the Methodist Church, again, some of you might know that Sir Philip Sherlock and Hugh Sherlock, they were sons of a Methodist minister. The church here had a gravestone laid in memory of their father, laid by Philip Sherlock. And Hugh Sherlock, the other brother, he wrote the words to our national anthem. So there's this connection in this church, in the same area that has Taino rock art, that has colonial slave estates, that has a free village. And again, a sad reflection, the Baptist Church has a 19th century bell, but it has to be locked away. Why? Scrap metal. They want to protect it from the scrap metal industry. So again, we need to be aware of the harsh realities. What I also found interesting about this location, there's a community museum art gallery. And what the owner said, these shackles, which they have hanging up here, which were worn by the slaves, they say they find them all the time around the community. It's like they'll just come across them. So sites, locations like this are the reasons why I've created this kind of site, this app. Because in a very, very small geographical area, there is so much history, which even the locals don't know. Because I came across this site by talking to the president of the CDC, and he did a tour of the community a tour of the site to the community, and they themselves were just discovering it. So this is just another site, and this is the kind of stuff that I've been doing. Any questions, any comments?
Yes, good evening. Hello, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, Doreen, thanks for joining. And thanks for that suggestion about a location.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Any questions, comments?
Yes, good evening. Question and comment. Comment
Hi,
first.
Val.
I appreciate the work you're doing. I think it's very important. But my question is, how interested you find people and in all of this? Because yes, Jamaica do have a whole lot of history and heritage. I see even in Spanish Town, the buildings are a lot of them are there, but they are being allowed to run down. The local
Yeah.
authorities are not even interested themselves. If you look at the bridge in Spanish Town, the Iron Bridge,
Exactly.
and the garbage is at the base for years and nothing's done about it, as an example.
Yeah.
The signs
Yeah.
are there and it's overrun with bush, and this is from the local authority. So if they are not interested, that could be economic gain for them, for example. So that citizens would become more interested to understand it. It can also help them. And if that's not happening, how we pass that bridge?
Okay, great. Excellent question. So, as I said, my reason for doing the app is for education. Because yes, these sites have potential for, as you say, community development through cultural tourism, through conservation and preservation. But if we, A, don't know about them at all, and B, don't know what they can be utilized for, really either lose them or foreigners will recognize their importance and utilize them and benefit, and the communities which should benefit from them will lose out. So it is education for me first, and and it is a valid point that the authorities themselves don't know, which is why my research is actually community-based heritage education. So it's educating the communities about what they have, and so that they in turn can share this information with the policymakers, with the decision makers. Because if the voters say that we should be doing X and Y with what we have, then they'll probably listen. They're less probably they're like less likely to listen to academics than they will to the people in the community who actually vote. So that's the aim of my research, to educate the community so that they in turn, once they realize that these sites can possibly be used for sustainable development projects, and they talk to the people in charge, then maybe things will happen. But Veral, as you rightly say, it's been decades, centuries of neglect, which is why my greatest fear is not that we lose it, but that outsiders, foreigners, will recognize the value and utilize it for their gain, and we as Jamaicans don't benefit. Because we've seen it in the coffee industry, we've seen it, all of our major homegrown industries, coffee, rum, etc., now owned by foreigners. We need to own what we create and what is part of our heritage. Yes, we have to address the impact of colonialism and slavery, and a lot of the reasons that's why a lot of these sites are destroyed, because we don't want to have any remnants of our slavery colonial history around to remind us. But the other argument is that these are reminders of what happened in the past to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So there are but the fact is we need to at least have the discussion. And these kind of sites can help to generate these discussions about our history, which will help us decide what we do with what we have in the future. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Well, that's awesome
But
work
it
you're
has to
doing.
start.
Yeah, and question though, in terms of funding, because everything needs funding along the way. Do you find there are maybe NGOs or other international bodies willing to fund things like this, where we could maybe get even students of history and geography to get involved in this in a bigger way and maybe get farther quicker in shorter time by mapping out these places and bringing them to light and writing about them also?
Okay, great. Yes, I mentioned earlier that Heritage Trust has said to me that one of the main reasons why they haven't done more is basically they own the money. So Heritage Trust needs money. But as Dwayne mentioned, I'm a member of ICOMOS, which is the International Council on Monuments and Sites. And in any other country, the sites that you see here, just in this location here, they would get funding. So one of my desires, because there used to be an ICOMOS, the way ICOMOS operates is that every country has a national committee. There used to be an ICOMOS national committee a couple of years ago, but it's not active. And trying to restart it. Hopefully that will happen. But I'm hoping that once the ICOMOS National Committee gets going, then we can go and obtain international funding to either preserve, educate, whatever. Because there is funding. There is. But we need to go out there and seek it. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do through the creation of ICOMOS, the National Committee. Yep. Any other questions?
One, have you ever thought of using this as a way to also be able to archive these places? Because, sir, I have to talk to you afterwards because I think we're on the same wavelength, because St. Mary has a lot of history and heritage, and we are trying to put together a heritage site tour. However, in doing some research, we realized that we don't have any footage of certain buildings that either have been destroyed in the past or burnt down and rebuilt. So I feel like in doing this and being able to capture these buildings, these places that even though they're not being taken care of, we still have the archival footage for them. So using these pictures, you can also sell them to people or to different agencies that, would want to use them to say this was how this looked in 2024 while you're in 2028. Yeah.
Yes, Shantri, thanks for that. And this is applicable to all of us as photographers. I mean, some of us have been shooting for decades, And I'm sure that we do have images of locations, buildings, etc., which are important archival images. So just to endorse what Shanti says in terms of making sure that our photographic archives, that we keep these archives so that down the road, when people want to see what it looked like in the past, there is some photographic record of these images. Yeah. Okay, great. Any other comments, questions from anyone? Thoughts? Any thoughts in terms of suggestions in terms of, let's say this is version 1.0, aim to update it. So if there are any thoughts, any ideas how it can be updated, any thoughts?
I do have one. Okay, so the Ministry of Local Governments has this thing called YSEP, where they employ the youth in various communities, which is based on your counselor. You tell your counselor that you want to work in your various community, whichever division you are from, and then they collect data. Some of these data are like street lights, if they're working, if they're not. Some illegal buildings and stuff like that for the municipal corporation, so that they can use that information to better be able to, I guess, take care of their parish. I had an idea also, just like this, but not in this step. So this is very nice. That I think he gave over 1,000, or is it 1,000,000 job employment. So each parish, from our parish of St. Mary, I believe there's like 300 and something of these persons who applied for YSEP, and it's divisional based. So based on, I think it's like 25 persons per division or so. So they go out in the various communities and collect that data. They use an app as well. I don't remember what the app name is called at the moment, but I'm thinking if you're able to pitch this to the Ministry of Local Government and also maybe TPDCO and the national sorry, the people who are able to further
The policymakers.
further take care of these buildings. You can say
Yeah.
you can use those persons who are also going out to the community to collect that data and also take pictures of their community while they're doing that work, and they get paid for that. Government pays for them to go out there and collect that data. So you can pitch it in a way that you're saying that you're archiving how their community looks, and also to say that if tourist persons are coming to, say, Buff Bay, Bull Bay, St. Mary, and they want to do the historical heritage side of it instead of the more like fun, adventurous side, they can use this app to pinpoint each location. And they don't need a tour guide to do that because they have the history right there. They have the picture and they see it in real life. So this is really amazing, sir. Like, this is amazing. Props to you.
Thanks, Andres. We will talk. Your numbers are the same, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, we'll talk. Okay, any other questions?
So from
Any other
the memo,
thoughts?
I see that you have one image for the thumbnail, and then there will be an image on the landing page for that site.
Yeah,
Um,
I could use the same image, but I chosen to give twice as much information. What I can do, as you noticed, with the like I'm showing here, also have the option of including a video clip separate from the image
my
on the
question
landing site.
was to find out if it was a limitation of the app to not include more images on the landing.
Um, for now, yeah, it's a one image on the landing page, which is the convenience of video. But again, it's something which I'm working on for version 2.0.
I was
So
thinking that
hopefully that will,
maybe having, say, 3 to 5 images to give
yeah.
a better story of the space or of the landmark.
Yeah. Okay, so additional images. Cool. Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Getting, well, whoa, going on to 9 o'clock and people are leaving.
I do
That-
have a
that's-
question. While you were gathering the information and you were going to the various sites, were you able to really go to these sites, or did you have to communicate before you came and speak to somebody, and that somebody spoke to somebody, and then how did it go? Because if for certain sites that you'd want a tour of, and you'd have to speak to that person who is slightly or in charge of that building, then is it a possibility that we can add their contact number, their information, to say
Okay,
if you want further
yeah.
information, you can talk to this person and let them know that you will be coming?
Okay, good question. Okay, so and I'll answer that with two answers. The For this location, St. John's, I accessed the location through the Community Development Committee, the CDC, based on a project that they were doing. Actually, the way I came across them, I was taking some students on a field trip to Mountain River Cave. And while I was on this field trip, we came across the CDC, and one thing led to another. And so working with the CDC helped to give me access to these locations for the app. In terms of accessing them outside of that, for example, say for a visitor, a few of these locations are private property, so they definitely would need permission beforehand. And so good idea to have the contact information there. Some of the sites, as I say, are on the main, straight in public. So these sites wouldn't necessarily require that, but a few of them are private property, and so definitely would need permission. So having that contact information to access, that's a good idea, Shanti. Thanks. But as I said, it's evolving from what it was originally planned for as a research tool, a personal research tool, to a more heritage education, maybe even tourism focused app. So I'll take all of this into account for the next version. Veral, you wanted to say something as well?
Yes, I think you're onto a very, very, very good thing, sir. I think you should just run as fast as you can and go as deep as you can because it has long-term viability as just looking at it now. But two, in terms of security of person and equipment and those spaces, how you work that out?
Okay, excellent question. Uh, so the third app is Eastern St. Thomas, which includes like Bath, Moran Point Lighthouse, etc. And actually, when you're in Bath with the equipment, sometimes you just get a vibe that says, don't hang around too long. Safety sake. Kind of got that vibe in Bath. So definitely safety is an issue. What like some of my students who do these kind of projects, I tell them, and I do it myself, first stop at the police station. Go to the police station, tell them what you're about, and then get advice from them as to what they think you should do. If you think, yeah, you can safely go ahead with your project, or if they recommend not safe, come back another time. What some of my students have done is that they were actually doing a similar, they're focusing on the historical buildings downtown. So what she actually did was she got a constable from the police station to accompany her when she went to these historical buildings downtown. So safety definitely is an issue. So one of the first things, so two things, check the police station first of all, speak to them, find out what their thoughts are. And second thing, always be vigilant, always follow your instinct and don't do anything by yourself. So, but safety definitely is a factor you need to take into account. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome. Anything else? I think that's it.
All right. All right, Andrew, thank you very much for sharing with us this evening. Love the
It was
project.
my pleasure, believe me.
I love the project. Love the idea and the purpose of the project of maintaining or safeguarding some of our cultural heritage. I hope you
Thank you.
have further success and are able to develop the app to its highest potential.
Thank you.
Is there any way the society can help you with this project?
Well, generally speaking, the society can help, as I mentioned before. Heritage Trust needs to know what exists out there because they themselves admit they don't. So definitely, every time you go out and you discover something, pass it through the Heritage Trust. In terms of developing this app, uh, thanks for the feedback. If you have any other suggestions in terms of maybe locations where similar apps can be developed for, any other additional features that can be included in the next version, anything that might make it more user-friendly. You already commented on adding additional images on the landing page. I appreciate that. Chantrice mentioned contact information for accessing the different sites and locations. So any other similar suggestions which anyone wants to give, I'd appreciate it. My email address is, I guess gonna put it in the chat, andrew@apsmithimages.com. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions as to how anything to include in the app in terms of features, locations, etc., you can just drop me an email and let me know.
All right, not a problem. All right. If there are no more comments or questions for Andrew, I think we can call this session or bring this session to a close. Thanks everyone for joining the session, and I hope you found it valuable. And
Time well spent.
all right, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, take care, everyone. Enjoy the
Okay, and thanks again for inviting me, Dwayne. And
You're
all the
Yeah,
best,
good night.
everyone.
All right,
Thanks,
so
everyone.
thanks again,
Okay.
Sir Smith.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
man. All right. Take care. Bye.